Here we go with the first pack, and we immediately have Revenge of the Hunted. There are two black cards in this pack, Deathwind and Homicidal Seclusion. Deathwind being the most efficient removal spell, and Homicidal Seclusion one of the key cards for black decks. But I think we are best off shipping these and taking the rare instead. And there is a Killing Wave, which looks like a black card, but it's almost unplayable in my opinion. So no reason to worry about that one. We can keep in mind that it's in the draft. Maybe somebody is going to pick it up. And for us, there's some nice blue cards. Gryff Vanguard and Ledge Seeker are the best ones in my opinion. And all the other cards are much worse. So I think Ledge Seeker is the better card than Gryff Vanguard, even though it only has one toughness. It's just cheaper and it does something which not many cards do. Having 3 power of evasion is pretty huge. It's not a good combo with Revenge of the Hunted, but neither is a flyer, so that's not really something to consider. I'm happy about picking up a Ledge Seeker second pick. I also like to draft blue-green, so if that's open, would also be nice. Stolen Goods is usually far too high of a variance card, so simply getting an uncastable spell or a cheap spell is usually not worth the investment. And one of the main reasons cards are good is because you can choose when to play them. So with Stolen Goods you don't get this kind of option to plan ahead. The best cards in this pack are Righteous Blow, Mad Prophet, and Peel from Reality. And because we have Ledge Seeker already, I'm going to go for Peel from Reality. The difference isn't that big, I think. Now, we don't really see green cards, or haven't really seen green cards. The best commons being the Force Mage, Wandering Wolf, and the Ranger. There is a Timberland Guide if we want to keep drafting green, and the alternatives would be Defy Death, which I really like in white decks. The boost to Angels just pushes it over the top. Well, and some okay cards, some okay white cards, and a Searchlight Geist. So Revenge of the Hunted is still so much better than any of these white cards, and by a fair margin, that I'm going to go with the slightly weaker pick of Timberland Guide in the hopes of still being able to continue drafting green. It's also very nice with Ledge Seeker and Peel from Reality. And if we have to drop green, it's not that big of a deal. Next up, still no cards that I would really consider switching our colors for. So the decision is between the Shieldmate and Triumph of Ferocity. I'm not the biggest fan of the Shieldmate, but it does enable Lumbernauts, so that's something to consider. It's also quite nice with Ledge Seeker. Triumph of Ferocity is, sometimes it's insane, sometimes it's a mulligan because you don't get to draw cards. It's much better on the play because you have the tempo advantage. Overall, it's a card I still like, but your deck has to be the right, your deck has to be set up right to use it. I think in blue-green I like the Shieldmate better, and with the Ledge Seeker already, this might be a nice way to win games. And here is an Archangel, not a very good card, and still no reason to not stay in our colors. So Galvanic Alchemist is quite nice if we happen to pick up some Lumbernauts. So, and we are most likely blue. The blue cards keep flowing even though they aren't the greatest, so we can keep cutting them and then decide on our second color later. Crippling Chill is a very good blue card. It's hard to evaluate because you don't want a ton of them in your deck, but the potential it has and the impact it has on the board makes it one of the better blue commons. And here's a Stern Mentor. I think we had one in the opening pack as well, so that's something to consider. There isn't anything else, so we might have an alternative win condition here. It's nice with the Alchemist, and of course Lumbernaut, as always. So Bladed Bracer is not a card I really like, but Outwit is a sideboard card only against a Bonfire, so we can pick up the equipment here. And that's not really interesting. I've most of these cards I haven't played yet, and I'm not planning to. I think we passed the black cards for the signal, so we can just take the blue card. Call to Serve is actually not that bad. Defy Death as a 12th pick is something I can't understand, because the good white decks usually have white angels. Well, maybe not the white-red aggressive deck, but every other deck. And Defy Death is easily one of the top cards in these archetypes. Now let's hide most of these. We can keep in mind that we have a Defy Death. If we happen to open up Seraph of Dawn or another good angel, we can easily go into blue-white control with these cards. And there is Terminus, a nice mass removal spell in white, but there's also a Mistraven in our main color, so there isn't much in this format which is better than Mistraven. We already have Appeal from Reality, so even though Terminus can be nice, it's still a symmetric effect in limited. It costs 6 if you have it in your starting hand, so there's a lot of reasons why Terminus doesn't immediately win you the game. So much less than Revenge of the Hunted, and even that is situational sometimes. So for me, it's a Mistraven. Here we have the Lumbernaut I talked about, but there's also a Gryff Vanguard, and I don't see a reason to pick one of the 4-drops, one of the green 4-drops, when I can have an excellent blue 5-drop. There's also an Angelic Wall, which is nice in the blue-white decks that want to win with a few evasive creatures, maybe a Stern Mentor. But let's just see what happens here. This is the point where we would like to find a second color, and Slayer Stronghold is not supportable, so it's between the two uncomes, I think. Nearheath Pilgrim and Holgeist, both very good. We could go for Appeal from Reality, but then we run into the danger of just sticking to blue the whole draft, and then we have a mono blue deck, which is usually not where you want to be. I don't like Holgeist that much in this kind of deck, because I don't know if we can use it, but we haven't really seen anything that makes me think that we can draft white except for Defy Death, and that could have just been an anomaly, getting it that late, or people are undervaluing it. Both is possible. So I think we should go with the Holgeist here, even though it might be wrong to pass on the peel. We need some ways to win, and creatures are usually a good way to do that. Which brings us to Trusted Force Mage, easily better than another 5-drop, also making our green cards a little more substantial. There's a Lightning Prowess, which could be good against us, but the pick is clear. This is the best green come, and a nice addition. We don't need a second Holgeist, one is fine, but Wandering Wolf is a very good 2-drop, and I'm happy to fill out my curve. It seems like the decision to go green is paying off in the second pack, and we should get enough blue cards to make a deck without any problems. Now this is interesting. We have Vanishment as a spell, and then Wingcrafter, Peddler, and Shieldmate as potential creatures. The 4-drop is out of the question. It's Wingcrafter, Peddler, or Vanishment. So if the Lumbernaut tables, we want one of these, and I think Wingcrafter is the better pick. Vanishment is okay, but it's actually not that great, I think. It helps to have some amount of tempo cards, but we do have Peel, Crippling Chill, and Mistraven already, so I'm not that keen on another instant, but I think Wingcrafter adds a lot to this deck, and I'm hoping on a couple of Lumbernauts, maybe only one, but that would be fine. Now, we do have 11 creatures, one of them being Stern Mentor, which we don't really want to play if we don't have anything else for it, but that's a nice start. Now, Sheltering Rod can be quite nice. I like it better than Snare the Skies. The alternative is Geist Snatch. With so many ways to bounce stuff, can be quite nice to deny the opponent's best creature. For Sheltering, we don't really have good targets for Sheltering Road, I'm afraid. So, going with the Geist Snatch here. And Alchemist's Apprentice is always a nice addition. I will play almost any 2-drop in this format. And this one is good with Soulbond because you can always break it whenever you like to. And it trades with arbitrary X1s. Maybe helped by Fleeting Distraction. And Flowering Numbernaut tabled, which means we are now officially in the blue-green Soulbond archetype. Well, at least we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We do have 5 Soulbond creatures already, and if we are careful what we bond, maybe pick up 1 or 2 more, we should be fine. Yeah, there's another one. It's perfectly fine to play 2 6-drop creatures, and this one isn't the worst. Hopefully we don't have to play the Bracers. If we pick up another Wandering Wolf, I could see myself running them. So this is pack 3, and it doesn't look very exciting. Sadly, there's almost no cards for us. I think we'll have to settle for Scrapskin Drake, not a card I really like. Like, almost all commons in blue or green I would have preferred to Scrapskin Drake. That doesn't mean that we aren't going to play it, it's just very unexciting. But it's not unexciting enough to hate draft something here, which would probably be Human Frailty, so that our bonds don't get blown up. But that's a pretty sad pack. We do have more than enough playables, so that shouldn't be a problem. And that's much better, giving us Lone Revenant, Into the Void, Nephalia Smuggler, Abundant Growth, Nettleswine, Shieldmate. We might even table something out of this pack. There is at least 6 cards that we would definitely play. So having 1 5-drop makes me think that Lone Revenant should be a nice addition, with just being a 4/4 hexproof, and the games where we only have 1 creature, it's insane. The games where we have more, it's well, it's still a 4/4 hexproof, and we have something on the board. So the alternatives are, I guess, the uncommons. Nephalia Smuggler comboing with Mistraven and Gryff Vanguard. Well, kind of with Whole Guys as well to reset the Undying, but the opponents are usually dead when you do that. The question is if we want the Into the Void, which is actually quite brutal, bouncing 2 creatures in a tempo-oriented deck. I think this is actually better than Lone Revenant. We can get a 5-mana 4/4 or something similar later on, but the ability to bounce 2 creatures for 4 mana, swinging all races in our favor, is just something that we have to respect. So the goods continue. Wingcrafter is good considering that we have a Lumbernaut, but it's easily possible that we wheel some more Soulbound guys, and Borderland Ranger is a very good card. We do have 3 cards that cost 6 and 1 that costs 5, so we are interested in getting to 6 lands, and we also have some double blue cards, so it will fix our mana sometimes. It's just so much better than Wingcrafter that we can't take the more synergistic card here. But maybe this is the pack where we can pick up the second Wingcrafter. We do have a Geist Snatch already, we don't need a second Alchemist, and Favorable Winds is not what this deck needs, so I will happily play 2 Wingcrafters. Even though pairing Wingcrafters with stuff like this is not really a good way to go. I think we probably pick up Haunted Guardian here. We do have Fleeting Distraction already. We don't really need another Scrapskin Drake because we have lots of creatures already and 5 3-drops. So I'm more interested in the Guardian, even though I'm probably not playing it main deck. I love it as a sideboard card against red-white aggressive decks, and well, these can be the best decks in the format, so It's always good to have something. This is also great. So many good cards for us, but we won't table one of them. So we have to decide between Amass Components, Mistraven, Into the Void, and Flooring Lumberknot. If we didn't have one Into the Void yet, I would maybe consider picking the first one. But given that we have one Mistraven, one Into the Void, it has to be correct to pick up a second Mistraven. Just because you want to draw as many Mistravens as possible, but you don't really want to sit there with two Into the Voids in your hand. Now, Lightning Prowess is a good card, and we do have the Alchemist to combo with it, but we would have to stretch our mana base. Playing a Mountain and the Ranger could work, but I'm not a big fan of that. So maybe it's just going to be Ghostly Flicker here as a way to well, as a pseudo combat trick, and to reset our Soulbound triggers, and of course do some stuff with our Mistravens. At this point I'm just rounding out my deck, and I don't even know if my picks are going to make it in the end, but we shouldn't have any trouble with the amount of playbills. So here I think Bower Passage is a potential sideboard card. And now it's just taking the best card our opponents could use. And the Smuggler Wield. Okay, I know I gave this card a hard time when during my last show, when I talked about the underachievers in blue. I just don't think it's that great. But now that we have two Mistravens, it's an auto include easily. And this doesn't matter. Favorable wins, something we might want to take out so that nobody else plays it. And I don't think the Scrapper would make it, so it's also possible to play this with two Ringcrafters and the Mistravens and so on, but I feel like we have far too many cards anyway, so it's not going to be about what we play, but about what we don't play. There is going to be 1.5 decks here, so let's see. Okay, I added up all the cards. I left the Haunted Guardian in the sideboard. I think it's going to be a sideboard card for us, and we don't need a natural land in the main deck, so this is really all that we can play. Our deck is too full for something like Bladed Bracers, so I think it's easy to identify the cards that we could cut. The Geist Snatch, Ghostly Flicker, Favorable Winds, and Fleeting Distraction we don't have to main deck, but of course we can. This is 19 creatures, so we could easily cut 2 of them, and then we would probably cut another 2 spells to have a nice 17 creature deck. However, we have to see that we have 3 1/1s, and the Alchemist is also kind of a low impact card, so maybe 17 creatures is on the lower end of where you want to be. Now, Scrapskin Drake isn't the greatest. The Alchemist isn't too good either, but I want to have those early drops if possible. So let's count the Soulbound cards. We have Pathbreaker Worm, Shieldmate, Lumberknot, Stern Mentor, Force Mage, Alchemist, and 2 Ringcrafters. That makes 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, which is perfectly fine to play Lumberknot, especially with the Ringcrafters. A 5/5 flyer for 4 is just so good, even though it might sometimes not be able to fight. So I'm tending towards keeping in the Lumberknot, but we have to see that the Soulbound creatures might just not be good for our deck overall. So even though this is a great card, it might make our deck worse because we have to play cards we don't actively want. And one of them is definitely Stern Mentor, which is great with the Alchemist, and it has the potential to win games on its own. But our deck should have an easier time just beating down with our more tempo-oriented cards. So Stern Mentor not the greatest card in this deck. But this deck does have some aggressive problems anyway. Our creatures don't hit that hard. I would have liked to have some more aggressive cards, especially in the three drop range, and more Wandering Wolves are always good, of course. So let's keep this in mind and take a look at the spells. Revenge of the Hunted, Into the Void, Crippling Chill, and Peel are given, and we can cut any of these, I think. The Flicker being the most interesting one, because in the green-blue Mistraven Soulbond deck, it always has something to do. So it's going to be like Nephalia Smuggler without the body. So I think this is the card we should play. I don't like Favorable Winds because it's kind of like an equipment. You need to have some creatures and they need to have flying. And if you don't, or if your opponent deals with them, then you have an unnecessary card. So I also don't like Geist Snatch that much. We have quite a lot of ways to control the board, so keeping up 4 mana and only having 3 other instants is not a good way to play, because your opponent can easily read the situation. So I think these are the 2 spells I would most likely cut, and that gives us a nice assortment of spells to work with. So that means we still have to cut 2 creatures, and given that I want to keep in Lumberknot, I still have to decide if Stern Mentor makes it or not, and what the second card to cut would be. I think we have to get rid of Stern Mentor, even though it has the synergy with Lumberknot. We can play the Lumberknot with 6 Soulbonders and all these tricks to get there, and the Stern Mentor is just not going to do enough for us. So the second card is actually the more difficult one. I would like to maybe get rid of a Ringcrafter, but then we kind of have to cut the Lumberknot as well, which makes our deck worse, I'm afraid. So this is really not easy to decide on, because the 6-drops are, well, 2 6-drops are a lot, but within the Mistraven deck, and given that we have a Borderland Ranger as well, we do reach 6 mana, and we want to use the 6th land, which is also important when you play card draw spells and stuff like that. I think the weakest cards are Galvanic Alchemist and Scrapskin Drake. And Scrapskin Drake just has the problem of not being able to block against aggressive opponents, and we don't need air defense. We do have enough flying creatures and Wingcrafters for air defense if we want that. So because Alchemist has Soulbond and is a good defensive card on its own, I'm going to play it over the Drake, which makes my deck even less aggressive, but I think we can play a very variable game with this, so I feel like it should be okay. We do have much more blue cards, so that makes me think that we should play 10-7. This is also a 1 green card, kind of, and we don't have any green tricks, so we are going to want to play a blue spell and keep open blue mana, which means that we definitely need 10 islands. With Ledge Seeker and double Mistraven, it's kind of natural anyway, but I just wanted to make sure. See you in round 1.